Universal monsters have gotten the comedic treatment a number of times in the past decades, with the likes of the Munsters, Monster Squad, and Groovy Ghoulies, so the idea of lampooning the famous villains is nothing new. When I heard that the Happy Madison crew was going to star in their own version of this concept, I got instant flashbacks to some of their more recent works like Grown Ups and Zookeeper. Unlike a lot of film snobs, I hadn't actually fully given up on Happy Madison for quite a while, but it was actually around the Grown Ups era when my feelings toward them started to wane. While Grown Ups kind of works as a reunion tour for these SNL greats, it's not really an effective movie. Then came Zookeeper, and that's my boy, and who can forget the cinematic classic Jack and Jill? So with the release of Hotel Transylvania from Sony Picture Animation, a studio with ambition but with no clear style, I was sadly turned off by the idea. So what, we're gonna get these bad jokes where the invisible man farts and no one knows it was him? Frankenstein is gonna be a bad stereotype of mentally handicapped people? I could just foresee all the bad taste boring comedy. What I didn't expect was this classic horror tribute to actually be really enjoyable. In fact, Hotel Transylvania is probably one of the better Halloween movies to come out in the last couple years. The month of October has been so littered with general scary films and looking towards Christmas that we've seemed to forget that Halloween doesn't really have many kids movies. Goosebumps and Fun Size, I guess, and Nightmare Before Christmas is probably the best of the bunch, but that's literally half a Christmas movie. The general audience has been dying for a Halloween-centric film, and just looking at the box office numbers, this was a breath of fresh air for people. Even if it's not a full-on Halloween movie, the monsters themselves are so tied to the holiday that I can't help but attribute it as such. I continue my journey through the Sony animated movies requested on Patreon by Ryan, which if you're interested, you can go join there too. And here's another one that I never got a chance to see in theaters. It stars Adam Sandler as the main vampire, Dracula, whose daughter, played by Selena Gomez, is turning, funnily enough, 118 years old, and wants to be able to see the real world and be with humans, which Dracula is constantly terrified of, having lost his wife years earlier to a traditional angry mob, just as many Universal horror movies ended. Instead, Dracula throws a party at his hotel, a sanctuary for all monsters, that is, until a human, played by Andy Samberg, shows up. With that premise alone, I know what you're thinking, and you're right. It is a similar plot to a lot of animated movies, probably most notably The Little Mermaid. What makes this different? Well, the real threat of the humans is actually prevalent. I mean, Dracula lost his wife. What could be more tragic than that? And for a while, Mavis actually gives up on her dream due to a ruse set up by her father. When Jonathan shows up, Dracula actually has to disguise him in order to keep him away from Mavis, which only causes them to run into each other more, and while Dracula has biased hatred towards him, he actually starts coming around to him by the end, and not in the meet the parents kind of fashion. Like, Dracula and Jonathan develop their relationship as friends, having fun, and I've never really seen that before. It doesn't always go for the most obvious cliche. When everyone finds out that there was a human staying at the hotel, and when Mavis finds out Dracula tricked her, they all get mad at first, but instead of lingering on this typical story beat, they instead come to a quick resolution and move things along. And unlike The Little Mermaid, the love interest isn't some perfect human, he's just a bit of a goofball, and the rest of the humans end up proving themselves to Dracula and the gang when they realize the rest of the world loves monsters now. So the story isn't exactly what I was expecting. The humor was throwing me off at first. There was a fart joke pretty early on that made me prepared for the worst, but instead, they changed things up to be, like a lot of kids' movies, pretty silly and poppy at times, but there's a credible amount of one-liners and punchlines that just land. It's probably the funniest project that Adam Sandler has done in the last decade, and it's only helped by the style of Jendy Tartakovsky's artwork. He did stuff like Samurai Jack and Dexter's Laboratory, and while this movie probably could have been a hand-drawn production, unlike Open Season, this movie takes advantage of the computer. It has the same kind of quick-paced style you'd find in a Cartoon Network show, but uses the craftsmanship and colors of computer animation to really make it stand out from the work of Pixar or DreamWorks. The designs are memorable, and the creators just know when and where to place a camera and how to set up a shot to be funny. Adam Sandler has gotten criticism in the past for his voices, and trust me, I can't handle a lot of them either. But here, his Dracula impersonation may be what's typically expected, but I find it nonetheless funny. Some of these castings seem to be a simple fill-in, like Kevin James as Frankenstein, CeeLo Green as the Mummy, David Spade as the Invisible Man. They don't really bring much to the role. Sometimes they're dead-on hilarious, like Steve Buscemi playing an exhausted father version of the werewolf, and probably the best is Jon Lovitz as Quasimodo, who this time around is a chef with an overly exaggerated French accent. That sounds simple on paper, but it's Jon Lovitz who always manages to make me laugh, and the animation on the character is out of this world. Some horror fans may be disappointed that there's not too many references or good jokes relating to the individual franchises. I don't know how much they'd be able to get away with legally, and fans are kind of used to that by now. But while not every joke lands, it's still a worthwhile interpretation. When you think about all the different times you've seen this done to the monsters, you'd think they'd run out of ideas. And here, while they're not 100% accurate, I'm still seeing new stuff, rolled up into an art style that really manages to stick out. I was fully prepared to hate this movie, and I came out surprised. Don't ever judge a film by its cover. Thank you for watching the video. A special thanks to Movie Johnson, Ryan, and Lucas for supporting me on Patreon. If you'd like to be like them and get exclusive access to content and blogs, and even request reviews monthly, please click on the Patreon link, and thanks for your support.